Hello everyone, my name is Tania. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. If you have never seen any of my content, I suggest you stick around and check me out. And if you like me or you like my content, subscribe, okay? So today we're going to be talking about 7 steps towards getting your full licensure as an LCSW. Now, an LCSW is just one of the few licensures that a fully licensed professional in social work can get. I'm going to be talking about the LCSW as I have clinical expertise and professional expertise in that, okay? So I've had a lot of people reach out to me over the last several months wanting to get more insight into the field of social work. You don't have to have a full licensure in order to make decent money in the field of social work. Now, you should consider where you're living as far as your state and the type of social work you're doing, but you don't have to get your LCSW to make decent money. But today I'm going to just go on and start off with these 7 steps. So obviously the first step is you have to get the education. You have to have the degree. And a lot of people think you have to have a BSW or a Bachelor in Social Work, but you can also get a related bachelor's degree. I actually got my bachelor's degree in psychology, as I thought I was going to get my doctorate in psychology at one point. But I switched trajectories and now I am a fully licensed LCSW. But make sure you either have the BSW or a related bachelor's degree, and then you'll be able to be on the track to get your master's of social work. You can also pursue it through a doctorate of social work or having a PhD. Okay, and it has to be from a school that is accredited by the Council on Social Work Education, CSWE. Okay. So the second step, apply for your associate license, okay, your LCSWA. And in order to do that, you apply to your state's board. For North Carolina, the fee is $115. And within a 2 to 6 year period, after you apply for your LCSWA and you get it, you have to fulfill a lot of different requirements, which I'm going to get into in a bit. The third step is find a clinical supervisor. And this is so important because a lot of people really mess up their journeys towards LCSWs by picking a supervisor that's either not a good fit, picking a supervisor that's directly connected to a job, which I strongly suggest against, because you might bounce around from job to job. So if you leave a job and your supervisor was at that job, then you have to find a whole nother supervisor. I would strongly recommend finding a supervisor that is independent of any job that you have, that's totally separate. That way, if you do have to leave a job or you bounce around, you won't have to worry about starting over and having all that paperwork that you have to figure out because you're starting over with a new supervisor. So yeah, you have to have 100 hours of clinically supervised work. So basically, you have to have 3,000 hours of clinical work, but 100 hours supervision. It averages about 1 hour of supervision for every 30 hours of work. And some people do group supervision too, so you can get up to 25 hours of group supervision out of that 100 hours, okay? This next step, try to get it done as soon as possible. So that is passing your clinical exam. You want to pass this exam as early in the 2-year process as possible, because if you don't, you will basically throw everything else you've done away. I would strongly suggest going to I think it's Association of Social Work Board website to get study tips and practice exams and stuff like that. But having a good supervisor, like I already mentioned, will make a big difference in your success rate in passing the exam. I passed my exam on the first try, okay? But a lot of people, they are cutting it very, very, very close, because they'll pass their exam right before their license expires. And then some people aren't able to even do that, and they have to start all over, meaning like all the 3,000 hours that they worked and everything, they have to start over. So pass this exam as quickly as possible after you graduate. They told us in my graduate program, you have a higher likelihood of passing the exam the closer you are after graduation, because the information is fresh in your head. So yeah. So the next step is work experience, which I've kind of mentioned already. You have to have 3,000 hours of clinical work experience in the field, okay? And these 3,000 hours, like I mentioned before, have to be supervised by a clinical supervisor. And you can do these hours in the community, in the medical setting. I did part of mine in an international crisis call center. So one thing I would say is, like, social work is kind of murky, especially when you're green and you're trying to figure your way out. I would say that if you can find, like, it's for me, I bounce around a lot. Like, just be prepared that if you have to leave a job, that have all your hours, document all of your hours, okay? Make sure you keep your hours documented, either digitally or in pen and paper, because nobody else is responsible for keeping your hours, okay? It is so important. I've heard of people not keeping their hours and bounced around with supervisors and bounced around with jobs and all that stuff, and it was just very, very murky. So this goes with your clinical supervision hours too. Keep a running list of your clinical supervision hours and a running list of your working hours. That's what I would do, okay? That way, when it's time to turn all your paperwork in, when you apply for your full licensure, it'll be organized. If they audit you or whatever, you can say, hey, here it is, and you'll be good to go. So the next step is continuing education. In the midst of getting your 3,000 hours of work and your 100 hours of clinical supervision, you also have to be working towards 40 hours of continuing education. Usually, a lot of people would do 20 hours in person, going to in-person conferences, and then 20 hours online. But considering we can't be in large numbers at this time, they might have revised the expectations. But for the most part, you have to have 40 hours. They expect us as social workers to be ethically sound, okay? You should be, honestly, if you're trying to be clinically astute and clinically sound, you should be up on your social work hours regardless. But the board expects you to have at least 4 hours of ethics, okay? So now you are ready. Once you've gotten your 3,000 hours of clinically supervised work, your 100 hours of clinical supervision, you passed your exam, and you've gotten your 40 hours of continuing education, and you've gotten all your paperwork organized, now you're ready to apply to be a fully licensed social worker, okay? And I cannot tell you how exciting this is, because for me, it took me a little over 2 years. I think it took me 2.5 years to get mine, because like I said, I bounced around a lot. But you really feel like you done came through a storm whenever you get all those requirements done. Like, when you get that piece of paper, it's almost as exciting as your actual degree. I can't even front. Like, it is so exciting. So in order to apply, you have to pay $115 to apply to become fully licensed, okay? And in order to keep your full licensure, you have to renew this every 2 years, and that entails paying $150 and keeping up your 40 hours of continuing education, okay? The board is really, really strict on this. Now, I would strongly suggest anything you do when it comes to collecting hours, that you always keep your hours documented, and any certifications, continuing education stuff, keep it all together, because at any point the board can audit you or request an audit. And if you have submitted these hours or all of this stuff and you don't have anything, you don't have any receipts, then that can, they can honestly take whatever they've given you back. But I'll put a link in the description box, basically lining out everything that I said in this video. And I practice out of North Carolina only. If you're in a different state, I would strongly suggest putting in your state social work board and looking at their requirements. But at any rate, above everything else, be grounded in God. Be grounded in God. God is going to give you the wisdom to be able to discern if a job is good for you, if a certain clinical setting is good for you, if a supervisor is a good fit for you. Like, God is going to give you the discernment, okay? So turn to him. So I hope this was helpful. If you like this content, leave me a comment down in the comment section. And if you have any other suggestions, I would greatly appreciate it, because I just want to help you guys out. I went through a lot on my journey to becoming a full licensed therapist, and it's not easy. So anything I can do within my means to be able to help make this journey a little bit more insightful or easier, I'm more than happy to do that, okay? Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're led to, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.